We love Sarah Vaughan. Tom, what a cool find that was.
It's one of my favorite CDs. The whole album, including one where she makes a couple faux pas, is all in this disc. It's a wonderful, wonderful concert, and it reminded me of this place that my parents just loved going to.
Mine too.
David Marienthal,
I went
thank
there
you
myself.
so much. David is the son of the producer, owner, developer, mentor of Mr. Kelly's and the Happy Medium, which I hope we get a chance to talk to as well. Tell us what you're trying to do to remember your family's legacy with this wonderful, wonderful center of culture, music, comedy, introduction of all sorts of famous stars over the years.
Well, I'm so happy to be here with you this morning, Tom. It's really wonderful. Thank you for inviting us. As you said, it was just an incredible part of Chicago history, of 20th century culture, of entertainment history, that my father, George Marienthal, and his brother, Oscar Marienthal, started literally after the war. They came back from the war and bought a greasy spoon across the river from the Wrigley Building in the London Guarantee Building, called the Fort Dearborn Grill.
Dang.
And they shortly turned it into one of the best steakhouses in town, the London House, with Chicago Stockyard meat and green goddess salad.
What year was that?
That was in '46. They opened it as the Greasy Spoon, and then they
classed it up a
they
bit?
classed it up a bit, and then in 1953 they brought in live music with
Beautiful.
Miss Barbara Carroll.
So ahead of Ricardo's, ahead of Billy Goat's, ahead of the Boulevard or the Bowl East, or
Well, you know,
all those eateries and bars that journalists and others used to go around there.
as you know, I mean, the Loop was the spot to go at that point. It was really the real Mad Men, because there was more advertising, radio, media in that area than New York. And the London House Bar was where everybody would go after work, and you'd be able to walk in and for the price of a drink see an Oscar Peterson. Coleman Hawkins recorded there.
Wow.
Harold Garner. All the great jazz pianists were through there. McCoy Tyner. And then in 1953 they opened up Mr. Kelly's, and that was at the corner of Bellevue and Rush, right where Gibson's restaurant is today, which is, you know, continuing the tradition of fine, busy restaurants in Chicago. But they opened Mr. Kelly's in '53 with great steaks, great food. My father was really the food man, the beverage man. My uncle Oscar was the entertainer, the glad hander, really the
Front man.
impresario in terms of that. And so they worked for many years together at Mr. Kelly's. Their first performer was Audrey Morris, who's still, if you were at the Oscar Peterson concert last Friday, she still performed and sounds great. She opened the music in 1953. And then, you know, it just went on from there. Their format there was to bring on every night they'd have a comic and a singer for 2, 3, 4 shows up until 5 in the morning.
Wow.
On Rush Street. And they started to bring in the 50s, Billie Holiday was there. Ella Fitzgerald cut an album there as well. They started out with more, we'd say, old school comics in the 50s, Jackie Leonard, Toady Fields.
My gosh.
And then as the 60s evolved, they started bringing in, you know, just this incredible lions of 20th century entertainment. Barbara Streisand was there just straight off her first run at Broadway. Shot the cover of People magazine on Oak Street Beach, or People album at Oak Street Beach.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a great story about her going out with my cousin, and my cousin's husband was a famous photographer, and they went out at dawn after playing Kelly's and shot the cover to the People album.
Oh, my gosh.
I found on YouTube a remarkable black and white of Barbara Streisand. It wasn't from Mr. Kelly's, but it was the same year at 21 that she has initially performed, if I'm reading this history correct. And incredible voice, and didn't look like she was out of high school.
No, I did see her at 12 years old, and you know, she walked up, she was this mousy looking young woman with stringy hair and a big nose, and all of a sudden she opens her mouth and literally the whole room knew you were in the presence of genius.
So Richard Pryor, Woody Allen,
Yeah, Woody Allen was there, again, one of his first acts. He was so bashful that he performed the whole first set with his back to the audience. He cut his first stand-up album there as well. Some of the great Mort Saul.
I was just gonna ask if
Mort
Mort
Saul.
Saul ever visited the stage and whether he had,
Mort Saul, all these people, many of the people made it their home, including Woody Allen. Mort Saul was there once or twice a year for his whole career.
Did Steve Allen make the same?
Steve Allen, there was a lot of people that were in the audience. So there's a story about Phyllis Diller was performing there, and then there was she was discovered there, and the next week she was on Ed Sullivan.
Ah,
Wow.
so you've given us a great rundown of some of the famous people and all that, but to what end? Tell us a little bit about this multimedia project that you and your archivist here have been.
Adam Karsten is with us too. Hi, Adam.
Hi. Well, basically the goal has just kind of been to try and get a social media presence, and David's working. We're working to get a documentary going, a television series. It's really just the project lends itself to be almost any medium you really wish, because you have comedy, you have music, you have culture, you have history of the city. It's really just coming together.
Are there recordings that have not been heard yet that might show up on your social media or your documentary? You mentioned people doing their live albums were recorded. Is there other material that you found or you know of somewhere in a vault or locked up in a basement? Or
Well, we're finding things every day. I mean, I didn't really know until the last couple months that Mort Saul recorded one of his first albums there. So, as Adam said, I've been working on this project for a couple of years, and I've amassed an incredible archive. It was really my intention to create an archive of material. We have hundreds of photographs, articles. Now over 50 interviews with everybody from local Jay Emmerich, who owned 12 bars on Rush Street.
Oh my gosh.
And Will Sheldon, his bartender, who was the maitre d' at Kelly's, and then was the famous bartender on Rush Street. To family members, to now celebrity interviews. We just got back from interviewing Bob Newhart. It was literally Bob Newhart's first job. He was still working part-time as an accountant, and he had just got half his record made, and he was trying his craft at Kelly's. He said if it didn't go over well, he was going to go back to being an accountant.
A Loyola grad, by the way.
A Loyola grad, exactly. We need to definitely put that in. But our project really, bringing Adam today because it shows representative of how we're trying to really reinvent it and recreate it for the new generation. And with the TV show, that we have a scripted TV show that we're actively putting it in front of producers to take a look at, based on the life of Rush Street and the two Jewish brothers opening the clubs after the war into the shark pit of crooked politicians and mobsters and performers showing up drunk and
dang, you've got a lot there.
Right.
You've got a lot. I love that you mentioned Mad Men, because the feel I have about that era in my city and London House and Mr. Kelly's, not so much the Happy Medium because that was a different sort of thing, but was exactly that milieu of the 60s, of the advertising, of the male-oriented, from my perspective also, one that kept women in their short skirts and high heels as long as possible. Yes, Michael, I see you're trying
well,
to
no, I actually went with a madman to there. I was on a visit to Chicago with my dad, who was an advertising guy from the East Coast. But my question is, what about the demise of these wonderful establishments? How long did they last? Where are they now? What brought about the ending?
Well,
before the new beginning.
That's the very interesting part of it, that it was kind of a moment in time, because they opened it up after the war, and 25 years later, they were shuttered.
That moment was gone, yeah.
We know that the whole, Chicago changed, the cityscape changed, and the social fabric of our country changed.
Yeah.
This was the time. It really traced the certainly the gender
Movements.
issues.
Mhm.
This was a
Yeah.
time when they opened, a woman could not go out on Rush Street alone.
That's
They
right.
were not allowed to be seated at a bar alone. And then, on Rush Street, literally the first women that were working independently were the stewardesses that were based in Chicago, and they started,
Hub city.
started to go out as groups and alone, and they were welcomed, and then the racial change was certainly mirrored in the clubs. London House was one of the first clubs to welcome a mixed clientele, and we found an article in the Chicago Defender saying London House and Kelly's were noted for welcoming the
Nice.
Sweet.
sepia
Yeah.
trade.
Excellent.
Long live
The
Kelly's.
sepia trade, I love it.
So I just, before we close out and do some other music from the Mr. Kelly's era, I want to do a shout out to the Happy Medium because Jacques Brel is alive and well, living in Paris, played there for a long time, 2 or 3 different productions. Very memorable. I think I saw 3 productions.
I saw it there.
Very, very
That was
memorable
really their crowning achievement. It was
Yeah.
it was an original building that was designed by Bertram Goldberg of the Marina Towers for the Marienthal brothers to produce
Oh, wow.
original comedy reviews. So
Yeah.
Stiller and Merrow were there, Nichols and May for long runs.
Huh.
Phenomenal
And,
venue.
If
So-
one of our listeners has some crucial information, or their parents too, how do they get a hold of you guys?
Oh my God, you are great. That's just what I was going to say.
That's what we
Go.
need.
Please take a look at our website at www.MrKellysChicago.com, our Facebook page at the same address, Mr. Kelly's spelled out, Chicago, our Instagram, Mr. Kelly's Chicago, and our Twitter account.
You're
Excellent.
listening to David Marienthal.
And if you do have any films or photos, please let us know. We'd love to see them.
Talking about the history of Mr. Kelly's, and as we bring up some music from a 1971 performance by Muddy Waters at Mr. Kelly's, we want to thank our guests, David and Adam and Odette and Craig Hodges in particular, and let you know that next week we will have some seniors from the Carolyn Hedger Apartments to talk about the redevelopment at Devon and Sheridan. Please like us on Facebook at Live from the Heartland Radio and YouTube Heartland Media, and on our website livefromtheheartland.com. Thank you, Lynn Orman-Weiss, and to Nolan Chin, our producer, and to Katie and Michael.
Do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do.
All power to the people. Over and out.